Hello everyone. So since the past few videos, or not few videos, since like almost all of the videos we've covered in this computer programming 101 series, we've been learning a lot and absorbing information, right? We have done a few examples here or there. We have tried to I've also tried to include practice problems after important concepts. But it's really important while learning computer programming or coding or data structures and algorithm to practice. Okay. So now, after absorbing so much information, it's time for us to start practicing. Okay. So the next at least 3 to 4 videos are going to be just programming problems that we're going to solve. We're going to develop an algorithm for them, and we're going to code it up, and we're going to submit the solution. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for the next 3 to 4 videos, and this is going to be a part of the computer programming 101 series, because it's really important to practice. Okay, so let's start now. Let's move on to a website. So we're here on leetcode.com. This is actually a really great site. There are resources to learn in this site. You can find those in the Explore tab. Um, there are coding competitions held that you can find in the Contest tab. Um, there are discussion forums in the Discuss tab, and in the Problems tab, which is by far the most famous tab that is used on this site, there are just a whole lot of problems about computer programming and data structures and algorithms. Okay, so this is an amazing site for you to learn and practice and keep improving. And we are going to solve questions from here mostly for this channel in general. So the first question that we're going to solve, which is going to be today itself, is question number 1342. So once you find your question and click at it in this problems list, it'll redirect you to the questions page. Okay, so this is what it looks like. The left side of your screen has the description of the problem statement. Okay, there are also examples beneath it, and if you want, you can also see what topics it's about, or some hints if you need those to get till your answer. Okay, then on the right side, here you have the code editor. Okay, if you look closely in this code editor, uh, what's given to us is actually a function, right? What's given to us here is a function. So for all problems on Leetcode, what is expected of us is to read this problem statement, uh, create a solution for it, but we don't have to write the complete program for this. Okay, we don't have to worry about input and output. All we have to do is assume that the input given to us is given to us through a function. Okay, so this would be the input given to us in the question, and we have to return the answer as the output from the function. Okay, so all you need to do is complete this function, and this function is what should do is what should solve the problem given here. Okay, so that's all. Now we can move on to start solving the question, right? So what's the first step in solving a question? The first step is the problem statement. So let's get into that. The problem statement is that given an integer num, okay, it's given here, you can see in the function as input, given an integer num, return the number of steps to reduce it to 0. In one step, if the current number is even, you have to divide it by 2. Otherwise, you have to subtract 1 from it. Okay, so let's see one of the examples given here. Let's see this example for when num is 14. Okay, so an explanation is also given here. So in the first step, what happens is 14 is even, right? So we divide it by 2, which gives us a new number 7. Okay, this is the new value of num now. Now the value of num, which is 7 in step 2, is odd, right? So all we can do is subtract 1 from it and the new value of num becomes 6, right? Now this value of num 6 is even. In step 3, 6 is even. So we divide it by 2 and obtain 3. Now in step 4, 3 is odd, so we subtract 1 and obtain 2. Then 2 is even, so we divide by 2 and obtain 1. And then 1 is odd, so we subtract 1 and obtain 0. Okay. So we need to keep doing these steps on the number num. And if the number num is even, then we divide it by 2. And if it's odd, then we subtract 1 from it, okay, so that it becomes even. And you basically have to count the number of steps till your number becomes 0, okay. So here in this example, those number of steps are 6, so the output that is given here is 6, okay. uh, so let's try to develop an algorithm for this, okay. Okay, so to formalize our algorithm, we're going to use a flowchart. So the first thing in the flowchart is obviously our input, right? The number num. Now, after this, what should I do with this number num? Okay. Uh, Before I do anything with num, I want to store a variable called steps. Okay. What this steps does is it actually counts the number of steps that we've already made. Okay. But just when the program is starting, we haven't made any steps yet, right? So we've made 0 steps. That means steps is equal to 0 in the beginning. Okay. Now let's get back to num. So what is the first thing I should do with num? The first thing I should do with num is check, is num 0? Okay. If num is 0, that means I already have a number that is equal to 0, right? So I should just return the number of steps I used to reach here. I should return the number of steps I used to make it 0, right? Which in this case is just 0, right? If just in the starting my original number num is 0 itself, then I should just return steps and the value of steps is 0. So I'll just be returning 0. That makes sense. That's correct. But if it isn't 0, then what do I do? Now I need to do a step on it, right? So I need to do one step on it. So, but before deciding what kind of a step I can do, I need to check, is num even, right? Because if num is even, then I want to divide num by 2, right? And if num isn't even, that means num is odd, then I want to subtract 1 from num, right? Now, after this, what do I do? So what am I doing in either of these cases? Even if num is even or num is odd, what I'm doing is I'm uh, performing one step, right? So after I perform any of these steps, I need to increase my steps variable by 1. Okay. Which means that I do this because I performed a new step, right? And so to count that step, I increase my original steps value by 1. Okay. After this, I should check if num is 0 again, right? And if num is 0, then I should return the value of steps, right? But if num isn't 0, then I should repeat this whole process, right? So what I basically need to do is I need to go back to this point in my program. Okay, is num 0? If num is 0, then we just return steps. Otherwise, we we repeat this whole process and again check if num is 0, and then repeat this whole process and again check if num is 0, and so on, okay, till num becomes 0. So what is this? This is actually a loop, right? This outer arrow that goes from steps till is num is 0, this is a loop, and this whole part is kind of the body of the loop. This is num is 0 is the condition of the loop, because if num is 0, then I should keep executing this loop again and again. Otherwise, I should move on to the other part of the program, which is just return steps, right? And what is this here? This is an if condition, okay? If num is even, then I go this side, else I go this side. So this can be done using if else. So that's the algorithm that we're going to use. All we're going to do is we're going to start with num, and while num is not equal to 0, okay, not equal to 0, while num is not equal to 0, we're going to uh, keep checking. If num is even, then we'll divide num by 2. If num is odd, then we'll subtract 1 from num, okay? And then after doing either one of these operations, we'll increase steps by 1 because we performed one more step, and then we'll go back again into this while loop, okay? And as soon as 1 does become 0, we'll return steps. All right, so that's our algorithm. So now that we've discussed the algorithm, let's try to implement it. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to do while implementing it is that create a variable steps, right? And initially the value of steps should be 0 because initially we haven't made any steps yet, okay? Then we want to run a while loop till num is not equal to 0, okay? So while num is not equal to 0, okay, you can use this to check if it's not equal to 0, okay? So while num is not equal to 0, what should we do? Inside this while loop, remember we had a if condition. So if num is even, that means if num mod 2 is equal to 0, right, then we need to divide num by 2. Now how do we divide num by 2? We want the new value of num to be equal to the original value of num divided by 2, okay? So on the right hand side of this assignment, what is going to be used is the original value of num. So the original value of num divided by 2 is going to be assigned to num again. So the new value of num is going to be the original value of num divided by 2, which means we've divided num by 2 effectively, okay? Else means num is even. We should subtract 1 from num, right? So num is equal to num minus 1, right? Now after doing either one of these steps, what do we have to do? We know that we've executed at exactly one more step, right, in this loop. So we need to increase the value of steps by 1. You can do that using this. Steps plus is equal to 1, okay? After this, that's it. This loop keeps running till num becomes 0. And when num becomes 0, this loop will stop running and it will come to the next line of the program. And what should the next line of the program be when the loop stops running? Remember, it was return steps. That's it. That's our whole algorithm. So this should work. Now let's just try to run our code first. So great. It works on this sample case that we discussed, remember? And let's try to submit it. Great. So it works perfectly. Uh, and yeah, that was all about this question. So keep exploring Leetcode. Right now, it might be a little tough to even understand a few or maybe most of the problems here, but try exploring it and try learning from it, and keep watching to discuss more practice problems. So thank you for watching.